Good evening, I'm Ed Lingao. The big stories tonight. More aftershocks rocked southern Luzon after a magnitude 6.6 earthquake struck Masbate this morning. Health Secretary Francisco Duque was in the hot seat in today's Senate hearing, where a whistleblower called him the godfather of PhilHealth's mafia. Metro Manila and nearby provinces are shifting back to general community quarantine or GCQ. However, a group of scientists warned that this is not a good idea. President Duterte says the country will soon be getting COVID-19 vaccines from China and Russia, but he says these will not be for free. Industry leaders warn of a possible shortage of processed meat products following the ban on poultry imports from Brazil. And the NBA playoffs have started. Check out the teams that drew first blood. We begin tonight with a magnitude 6.6 earthquake that struck Masbate this morning. Some residents in the town of Kataingan were left homeless by the tremors, and now they are struggling to find shelter as locally stranded individuals still occupy evacuation centers. Jenny Dongan with the story.
For Alma, the safety of her 2-month-old baby is more important than anything else. That's why when her town in Masbate was struck by a magnitude 6.6 earthquake on Tuesday morning, she immediately used her body to protect her baby. The strong tremor lasted for almost a minute, but it was soon followed by at least 20 aftershocks.
Dinapaan ko lang yung anak ko. Siya yung tinakpan ko. Yung isa dun sa ilalim ng lamisa, nagtago. Sobrang lakas talaga, ma'am, para kaming dumudyan lahat eh. Nahilo talaga kami lahat. Yung anak ko nga nanginginig eh.
Several buildings and houses collapsed in Kataingan, where the epicenter was located. Mayor Felipe Cabatana says one of his constituents died from the quake. He's a retired police colonel who was trapped in his house. More than 50% of the houses in the town were partially damaged, while major roads suffered from large cracks brought about by the earthquake. Residents were advised to put up temporary shelters in the streets or parks, as evacuation centers are still being occupied by over 100 locally stranded individuals. 6 of these LSIs have tested positive for COVID-19.
Ang proposal namin sa DOH na yung mga LSI ihatid na lang sa kanilang barangay pero i-quarantine sa barangay hall. Kaya lang ang DOH ayaw dahil ang monitoring sa LSI medyo mahihirapan yung municipal health officer.
Meanwhile, FIVOC's Director Renato Suridum said that while the magnitude 6.6 quake was a strong one, it's unlikely that it will cause a tsunami.
Yung fault po ay kumilos ng pahalang. Ang fault po na pahalang ang kilos, hindi niya masyadong madidisturb ng tubig kung nasa dagat yung movement niya.
Intensity 7 tremor was reported in the town of Kataingan, while Intensity 4 was reported in the town of Mapanas in northern Samar, Legazpi City in Albay, and Leso in Aklan. Intensity 3, on the other hand, was reported in the town of Iloilo, and Intensity 1 was felt in President Roxas in Capiz. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque assured quake victims that relief efforts are in place. He added that President Duterte in fact wants to visit the communities affected by the tremors.
Instinctively, ang presidente gusto nang lumipad papunta ng Masbate. Pero whether or not he will be allowed, tignan po natin.
For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, Taal Volcano emitted steam this morning. Plumes as high as 20 meters were seen coming from the volcano's main crater. FIVOX recorded at least 5 volcanic quakes around Taal since Monday. But the agency clarifies that Taal Volcano is still under alert level 1. This means that going to the volcano island is still prohibited. Moving now to other headlines, the president once again put Metro Manila under general community quarantine or GCQ. Aside from the NCR, the provinces of Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Batangas, Quezon, and Nueva Ecija will be under GCQ starting tomorrow, August 19, until the end of the month. The same goes for Iloilo City, Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu City, Mandaue City, Talisay City, and the towns of Minglanilla and Consolacion in Cebu. More businesses will be allowed to open in these areas. Public transportation and dine-in services will also be allowed, provided that minimum health standards are observed. However, presidential spokesman Harry Roque announced earlier that gyms and internet cafes will remain closed in GCQ areas. The group of health professionals that previously called for a timeout have expressed satisfaction with a 2-week modified enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila and nearby provinces. But another group says that the MECQ should have been extended. Marin Enriquez with the story.
The Health Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19 was pretty much satisfied with the outcome of their meetings with the Health Department and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 during the 2-week MECQ lockdown. The group, which is composed of more than 160 health professional organizations, was the one that previously called for a timeout to reorganize their strategy in responding to the pandemic. For Dr. Anthony Dance, president of the Philippine Society of General Internal Medicine, the timeout resulted in fruitful discussions and new plans.
Maraming nagawa, maraming napag-usapan, maraming na bagong plano. Kailangan ma-implement ng mabuti at tutulong kami dyan.
Walang COVID.
Dr. Maria Carmela Casala of Philippine Society for Allergy, Asthma and Immunology echoed Dr. Dan's sentiments.
Yung pong lockdown, hindi ho natin makikita, 2 weeks, hindi ho natin makikita na bababa ang cases. Realistically, hindi ho yun talaga ang pakay. Ang pakay po natin talaga ay mag-re-strategize.
The doctors welcomed the launching of the One Hospital Command Center, which aims to improve the health facility referral in NCR. They proposed for an expansion of the One Hospital Command to the One COVID Referral Network to cover clinics, pharmacies, laboratories, and other services. Doctors also urged government entities to strengthen the role of science in their decision-making process through the Health Technology Assessment Council, or HTAC. The HTAC should study over 58,000 COVID-19 studies to help policymakers. The council should be consulted on the right medicines, vaccines, and tests, among others. Doctors are also pushing for internet connectivity for all, especially for those who are living in disadvantaged areas, for more efficient contact tracing and telemedicine. They are also asking for a safe, sufficient, and sustainable transport option for the poor on top of an enforcement of workplace safety guidelines by the Labor Department. But not all experts are satisfied with the 2-week MECQ. Professor Guido David of the UP Octa research team noted that the countries are not, or the number that represents the infectivity rate of COVID-19 in the country is currently at 1.1. This is a huge reduction within 2 weeks compared to the previous 1.5.
230,000 is the projection, pero it's very possible that we can reach a lower number than this. We can even reach 210,000, which is the MECQ number, if we do the proper interventions and following the protocols strictly.
They said behavioral change is still the most challenging part of addressing the pandemic. That's why health experts are pleading the public to practice the standard health protocols. Experts are reminding the public to practice religious washing of hands, using of face masks, even face shields, and practicing physical distancing. And with the new interventions, experts are optimistic that this will help the country manage this pandemic better. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
The Health Department has reported over 4,000 additional cases of COVID-19 today. This brings total infections to more than 169,000. Active cases are now at 53,000. Most of the new cases were recorded in Metro Manila. Death toll is now at 2,687 with the addition of 7 fatalities. Over 180 recoveries were also reported today. This brings the total number of COVID-19 survivors in the country to over 112,000. After 2 weeks of suspension due to the modified ECQ, jeepneys and other public transportation will be back on the road starting tomorrow. But not all PUVs will be resuming operations despite getting the green light from the government. Gerard de la Peña with the story.
Public utility vehicles are set to resume operations tomorrow as Metro Manila and nearby provinces shift back to general community quarantine. 18 MRT3 train sets are ready to ferry passengers starting 5:30 a.m., while jeepney drivers plying the Quezon Avenue Santa Mesa route have been busy preparing.
Para ho sa lalagyan namin ng token yung sa pagbabayad ng mga pasahero at yung sa temperatura ng mga pasahero at yung pag-aalkoholo. Yun yung pinaghahandaan namin ngayon.
P2P and city buses, taxis, and TNVS will return to the streets as well. Even domestic flights at the NAIA are set to resume operations. With this development, commuters who had no choice but to walk going to work over the past 2 weeks felt relieved.
Mas malaki po siyang tulong sa gaya ko po naglalakad everyday, lalo na paggabi, delikado po.
Makakapagod din po sir, mahirap po. Kasi bilang merchandiser po, pagod na po kami sa gumagawa araw-araw po.
The LTFRB is hoping that the number of PUVs would be enough for the commuters after the number of jeepneys and UV Express doubled. But some drivers will still not be able to resume operations even if they already got approval from the LTFRB. Drivers plying the Guadalupe del Pan route said they don't have the funds to buy alcohol and thermal scanners after 5 months of non-operations.
Wala kami pambili doon kasi ilang buwan na po hindi kami nakabiyahe.
The LTFRB will be adding more routes in the coming weeks. As public transportation resumes, the LTFRB reminds passengers to comply with their directive to wear face shields when commuting.
And we would like to appeal to everybody to comply with this public health measure para na rin sa ating kaligtasan, para na rin sa ating kalusugan.
For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
We will pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, the President thanks China and Russia for their offer to prioritize the Philippines once their COVID-19 vaccines are available. But the President says we will not be getting them for free. And a whistleblower calls Health Secretary Francisco Duque the godfather of the mafia in PhilHealth. How did he respond to these allegations? Find out when a big story returns. I'm Ed Lingao, and you're watching The Big Story. President Duterte claims that Russia and China will provide the Philippines with COVID-19 vaccines once they are available, but of course not for free. And once again, he slams human rights advocates for opposing the revival of the death penalty against drug convicts. Marcel Rili tells us more.
Minutes before attending his meeting with the Interagency Task Force, President Duterte showed himself via Facebook Live to prove that he is well. His longtime aide, Senator Bongo, even posted on Facebook a picture of the president with his partner Hanilet and daughter Kitty having a dinner together. The president vehemently denied rumors that he went to Singapore over the weekend for a medical treatment and insisted that he never left Davao.
I am under no obligation to travel in secret and not telling the Republic at all. And I do not have to hide it. I said, I would not be stupid to use government funds. Malalaman ng tao yan.
Siguro
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque reiterated that the president's health is in good condition.
hindi ko naman napansin ang kahit anong kakaiba sa mata ni Presidente. I mean, sa tagal ko siya kakilala, ganoon naman talaga yung mata niya, no? So I did not see anything noteworthy, no? Pinagmamasdan ko rin siya kagabi, no? At he was at his best.
Duterte also announced that China and Russia will provide anti-COVID vaccines to the country once available. He clarified, though, that they will not give it for free.
If it is quite expensive, then I will ask my friend President Putin and President Xi Jinping to give us a credit, parang utang, a credit line, but we will pay not in one payment but by installments.
Roque said we might need about 40 million vaccines.
Ang target total na bibilin po natin for the poorest of the poor ay 40 million doses of the vaccine.
Before ending his public address, the president once again slammed human rights advocates opposing the revival of death penalty against drug traders.
Napakatorpe naman itong human rights. Pag hindi kayo ano ang ninyo? Magbilan lang ng patay? Maglipat kayo ng trabaho. Huwag sa human rights. Punerarya. Kung yan lang man ang trabaho ninyo.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
Despite being on quarantine, Health Secretary Francisco Duque still became the subject of today's grilling in the Senate. Now he is being accused of coddling the so-called mafia in the agency. Mian Los Baños with a story.
If there is any truth to allegations that a mafia is operating within PhilHealth, a whistleblower says Health Secretary Francisco Duque can be considered its godfather. The Senate conducted its third hearing on irregularities in PhilHealth today with Duque in the hot seat.
May tuturing ko po na siya po yung godfather po ng mafia. So ang dahilan po na marami po meron po siyang command responsibility at halos ma'am lahat po ng mga members ng mafia ma'am ay mga halos siya po yung nag-approve ng appointments nila ma'am.
I deny this absolutely malicious and without basis. I do not wish to dignify that allegation.
Dennis Adre, one of the agency's regional vice presidents, also pointed to PhilHealth Executive Committee members as the so-called mafia.
If we are to be called mafia for questioning flawed policies and illegal orders for exposing irregularities, then so be it. But we are the good mafia, and they are the real and bad mafia.
Adre said they were punished left and right with suspension and reassignment for exposing the irregularities in PhilHealth. He said Duque, who is the chairman of the board, was well aware of the situation. But amid the allegations thrown his way, Duque enumerated the actions he took to fight fraud inside the agency. Duque has been a part of PhilHealth in the last 18 years, sitting as president, chairman, or member of the board.
And I would like to state for the record that I am for zero tolerance on fraud and corruption.
Duque also refuted claims that the agency incurred a 154 billion peso loss due to fraud and more than 102 billion pesos for overpayments. He also defended the agency's use of the Interim Reimbursement Mechanism or IRM, saying funds are not solely intended for COVID-19 patients.
And COVID patients are not the only casualties in this war. IRM funds are not exclusive to hospitals catering to COVID-19 patients. It is for all HCIs catering for all patients during this pandemic.
But Senator Ping Lacson questioned PhilHealth's release of money to dialysis centers and maternity clinics.
Regular benefit claims yung sinasabi ninyo na hindi tatama dito sa circular na pinalabas para sa fortuitous event. O sabihin na natin para sa COVID-19. Yung sinasabi yung dialysis, hindi naman natin inaalis, natulungan din. Pero sa ibang programa, hindi po dito sa 0007 na IRM. Tama po ba yun?
Tama po kayo, Your Honor. We will rectify.
Duque then conceded to Senate questioning and admitted that cash advance payments made to dialysis centers and the like constitute illegal activity.
Illegal po yung pagbigay ng bayad sa Bibron Abidum na hindi naman nagkikater sa mga COVID-19 patients.
Yes, Your Honor. I take note.
Pag illegal, may malversation kasi hindi pa tungkol sa tamang dapat paggamitan ng pera. Tama po ba yun?
Tama po kayo, Your Honor.
Asked if he will heed the call of the senators for him to resign, Duque only said he did his best to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. PhilHealth President Ricardo Morales failed to attend today's hearing since he is on medical leave. Executive Vice President Arnel De Jesus also had medical check-up. Reporting for News 5 and Los Baños, we are One News.
Lawmakers over at the lower house promised to amend provisions of the Universal Health Care Law, particularly the mandatory PhilHealth contributions among overseas workers. In today's House hearing, migrant workers explained the burden brought by the 3% monthly PhilHealth premiums they are required to pay under the UHC law. The OFWs also noted corruption allegations hounding the agency. The lower house is set to continue its hearing on the alleged corruption within PhilHealth this Thursday. The House Committees on Public Accounts and Good Government are seeking the help of the Justice Department on a possible whole departure order against PhilHealth officials.
Isa pong napakagandang tulong sa ating mga OFW itong maayos natin kaagad ang ating batas. Ma-amyendahan natin na hindi pa naman po ito na-implement. Gusto ko lang pong iklaro, hindi pa ito na isasagawa, ay ma-amyendahan natin kaagad upang wag na mapahirapan ang ating OFW.
These are the other big stories today. An area in Davao City was placed under a hard lockdown due to the rapid increase of COVID-19 cases. All entry points going to Purok 8 in Barangay Tomas Monteverde were closed and manned by the police. Davao City Police said the lockdown could last up to 28 days depending on the decision of the City Health Office. A group of human rights advocates and some Mindanao residents have filed a petition against the anti-terror law before the Supreme Court. 3 of its petitioners expressed their fears of being arrested on mere suspicion as stated under the controversial law. They were previously tagged as members of the Abu Sayyaf group and were also arrested for these accusations. This is the 28th legal challenge against the anti-terror law. Presidential spokesman Harry Roque clarifies his statement yesterday on the SWS survey, claiming nearly half of Filipinos had lost their jobs in July. Roque said he was not expressing delight over the unemployment figure, but merely pointed out that numbers could have been far worse. Roque says he agrees with the move to partially restart the economy since a longer lockdown may push the unemployment figures higher. And coming up on the big story, missed the Game 1 of the NBA playoffs? Do not worry because we have got you covered. And Sell Pink will soon be in your area. Pop star Selena Gomez teases a photo of what appears to be a collaboration with K-pop group Blackpink. Check it out after the break. This is the big story, and I'm Ed Lingao. A possible shortage in processed meat products may be on the horizon, according to a processors group. Shala Francisco tells us why in this report.
Local processors are sounding the alarm over a possible shortage of processed meat products such as canned meat, hot dogs, and meatloaf. This is after the Agriculture Department imposed a ban on the import of poultry products from Brazil. Some samples of frozen chicken wings imported by China from the Latin American country tested positive for coronavirus. The Philippine Association of Meat Processors says Brazil is a major supplier of mechanically deboned meat of chicken, or MDM. MDM is a key ingredient in manufacturing processed meat products and are usually sourced abroad since they have facilities for deboning. Currently, supplies of processed meat in warehouse and groceries can last 2 weeks, while raw materials will only be good for 30 to 45 days.
We have actually more or less 6-7 weeks where we will not steal anything. Beyond that, you will already go to the supermarket and you will not have products to buy.
The group has written a letter to the Department of Agriculture seeking to exempt MDMs from the ban. They say MDMs go through a different production process with different manpower. The Bureau of Animal Industry says the department will need to study first if MDM procedures are indeed safe.
Lahat po ng karne ng manok galing sa Brazil ay ban po yan. Pag-aaralan po natin yung mga isusumite na dokumento po ng Brazilian government sa atin. Pag-aaralan po natin, kung makita po natin na safe yung pagproseso po nila ng mechanically deboned meat, pwede po natin payagan yun. Pero at the moment, ay wala pa po tayong desisyon na sinasabi tungkol po dyan. Meron po tayong technical working group para pag-aralan po yan.
While there could be shortage in processed meat products, there is an oversupply of chicken in markets. Imported chicken previously sold in hotels and restaurants are now available for retail amid the lockdown. Local production also increased. However, low demand continues to be a problem, with households trying to limit their consumption.
Una nag-MECQ, tapos nag-GCQ. Akala nung iba tuloy-tuloy na, babawi na kahit papano. Naengganyo magkarga. Fortunately, talagang ang bottom line dyan, walang pambili ang tao.
With this, chicken prices saw a decline. In wet markets, prices now range from 125 to 140 pesos, down from last month's 150 to 160 pesos. The DA is now looking for additional markets to sell these products. The department also called on consumers to report if chicken prices go beyond 150 pesos, saying this could be considered overpricing. Shyla Francisco, We Are One News.
And time now for some sports action. The NBA playoffs kicked off today. It started with a matchup between the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets. Donovan Mitchell worked double to make up for the absence of Mike Conley, but his 57 points were not enough as the Nuggets came out victorious 135 to 125. Defending champions Toronto Raptors, on the other hand, had a great head start after beating the Brooklyn Nets 134 to 110. Meanwhile, Kawhi Leonard and the LA Clippers spoiled Luka Doncic's record-setting debut after defeating the Dallas Mavericks 118 to 110. More clues are being unveiled in the upcoming collaboration between Korean girl group Blackpink and pop star Selena Gomez. Sell Pink is coming to your area August 28, but as early as now, the girls have been dropping hints on the new single. Selena posted on Instagram a photo of a Chevrolet van with the license plate Sell Pink. The K-pop group has also shared on IG a teaser poster showing a double popsicle bearing their names. The collaboration comes after Blackpink released their comeback single How You Like That, which broke multiple Guinness World Records, including the most views on YouTube in 24 hours. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, One News PH. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News. Good evening.